I think the great majority of us know the name of Arthur Conan Doyle, the crime writer, novelist and creator of Sherlock Holmes, and many of us will know about his fascination with the fairy realm. But how many of us really understand his love for the fairies? Maybe, just maybe, it is because of his father, the great artist Charles Altamont Doyle, illustrator and painter of fairy folk. Charles Altamont Doyle was born on the 25th of March in 1832, the son of Irish political cartoonist and satirist John Doyle, whose pen name was H.B., and his mother was named Mariana. He was one of 7 children, 3 of whom became professional artists. In 1849, Charles moved to Edinburgh, taking up a full-time job as assistant surveyor at the Scottish Office of Work. Here he met, fell in love with, and on the 31st of July 1855, married Mary Foley, daughter of his landlord. From this extremely happy union came many children, maybe 9, maybe 10. Sources are really not quite clear. However, one of these children was Arthur Conan Doyle. As a side job and to support such a large family, Charles also became a book illustrator in his part-time. At least 23 books are known of that he illustrated. He worked for Lewis Carroll on his 1877 book, Our Trip to Blunderland. He illustrated The Pilgrim's Progress, Robinson Crusoe, Beauty and the Beast, among many, many editions. Although a successful illustrator, respect for his work as a fine artist never came, despite even being exhibited at the Scottish Royal Academy. His work was filled with fantasy, delicate watercolour fairies among flowers, animals and birds, and yet Charles was a tortured soul. His life was racked with self-doubt and depression and the self-medication of alcohol. Sadly, over time, he became alcoholic, his artwork darkening with mood swings. In 1876, due to his increasing drinking and mental health problems, he was fired from his job. However, he did receive a small pension that would help him care for his family. It is a tragic, tragic thing that his problems escalated. During the next 5 years, his mental health declined and his alcoholism worsened. There was a constant craving and searching for alcohol, which brought immense worry to his family. He was taken into Blareno Home for the Intemperate Gentlemen at Drumlithy in the Mearns, a nursing home where he could be cared for and dry out. However, even there he sometimes managed to find alcohol, and his behaviour during these times was really quite frightening. On the 26th of May 1885, he was admitted into Sunnyside, Montrose Royal Lunatic Asylum, after an extremely aggressive outburst at the nursing home as he was trying to flee. Sadly, Sunnyside was of no help to the poor man. His depression worsened and he began to have seizures, probably brought on by alcohol. His memory was affected by years of alcoholism and his mental health was in a state of total collapse. Staff at the asylum would report that he told them he could hear messages from the unseen world, devils he would call them. Through his time there he still painted, and sometimes the medical help and his art brought him some stillness. In 1888, his son Arthur published his very first Sherlock Holmes novel, A Study in Scarlet, and it was Charles' illustrations that graced the pages. His work during this time was filled with fairy tale scenes and very strange creatures. He was insistent in meetings with his family that he was perfectly well and he was being held in this place against his will, woefully imprisoned. He wrote and he painted copiously, filling journals and sketchbooks with his thoughts and artwork. The front of his book held his handwritten words, "Keep steadily in view that this book is wholly ascribed to the produce of a madman." Whereabouts, would you say, was the deficiency of intellect or depraved taste? If in the whole book you find a single evidence of either, mark it and record it against me. Sadly, during 1891, Charles's health took a turn for the worse. He was transferred to Edinburgh Royal Infirmary and passed away during the night from a fit at the Crichton Royal Institution. He was buried in the High Cemetery at Dumfries. Despite the trials and tribulations of his life, with Charles as a father, Arthur Conan Doyle obviously loved this man and held him in great kindness. In his autobiography, Arthur wrote, "Full of tragedy of unfulfilled powers and undeveloped gifts, he had his weaknesses, as all of us have ours, but he also had some very remarkable and outstanding virtues. A tall man, long-bearded and elegant. He had a charm of manner and a courtesy of bearing, which I have rarely seen equalled. His wit was quick and playful. He possessed also a remarkable delicacy of mind, which would give him moral courage enough to rise and leave any company which spoke in a manner which was coarse." In 1824, at the Brook Galleries in London, Arthur Conan Doyle hosted an exhibition of his late father's artwork. He was extremely proud of his father's great talent. The writer and playwright George Bernard Shaw, and also a fellow Irishman, praised the artworks fondly. In 1978, the Doyle Diary was published. This contained Charles's artworks, painted and drawn between March and July 1889, while he was a patient at Sunnyside. One painting, The Spirits of the Prisoners, now resides in Australia at the Art Gallery of New South Wales. Their description of the painting is as follows. The Spirits of the Prisoners is a phantasmagoric scene with fairies, imps and animals, cascading over the rooftop of Montrose Asylum and down its dark, brooding walls. It reveals with such surreal clarity the painter's disturbed or joyful visions of the spirit world, here surveyed by the bearded apparition in the clouds, a clearly identifiable portrait of the artist himself, shows those creatures swooping and circling around the asylum. Charles Altamont Doyle, what a wonderful artist with such a tragic life story. Although within that time there were obvious times of great happiness and great joy, and what a beautiful legacy both in his own artwork and the gifts of the arts, of art and literature, that his children brought to the world after his passing.